Okay, so we did factoring the different types that we have out here. This one is section 6.7. These are different because when we were doing factoring, none of them had an equal sign. The last section that we have to cover is 6.7. Notice we're skipping 6.6. We're not doing factoring of a cubic function. So we're not doing perfect cubes or anything like that. But 6.7 says solving equations by factoring. So all these questions, you'll notice, will have an equal sign in the problem. Now, how do you solve by factoring? Well, we got some steps, just like we have for the other ones. The first step, what you're going to determine is if you have a good equation or a bad equation. You might be saying, is there a difference? Good equations are the ones that have equal to 0. Bad equations means it equals anything but a 0. Could be a number, could be a variable term. Make sure that you determine if it's good or bad. The reason why is because if it's bad, we need to make it into a good equation. Now, the question is how you do that. You're going to do A, if there's any parentheses, you got to remove them. Okay? Then after you remove any parentheses by distributing, then you have to make sure all terms are moved to one side. And you know how to move. We do the additive inverse, the opposite sign to move everything so the side does equal 0. And then you just want to make sure that all your terms are in descending order to help us do factoring. So that's how you take anything bad and make it good. Once it's good, then what we're going to do is we're going to factor completely the all term side. Because remember, to be good, everything's going to be on one side, the other side is equals 0. So we're going to ignore the equals 0 part and just factor out the all term side. And you know how to do factoring. We went over this before. You know, your first step is always to look to see if there's a GCF. Then the next step is count how many terms. It's 4, grouping, 3. You know, choose between shortcut, arch, or FOIL. Depends on if it has a leading coefficient or not. Or if it's 2 terms, difference of squares. And then you always make sure that you can't factor again. Once you factor completely, then our last step is to take each GCF and each set of parentheses, the binomials. And what you're going to do is bring back that equals 0. Once you set each one to equal 0, then you're going to take any equation that you have that has a variable and solve for that letter. Okay? And then a little clue would be whatever the highest or greatest exponent is in the original problem, that tells you how many answers you're going to have. Okay? So let's demonstrate how to do those steps with this guy. The first thing you want to do is, again, determine if this is good or bad. Does this equal 0 or something else? You can see here, clearly it equals 0, so this is good. Once we realize that it's good, I don't have to do any tweaking. Okay? So what I'm going to do is skip step 2 and focus on the all term side. So when I focus on the all term side, what I want to do is factor this completely. Remember, we're ignoring the equals 0 for right now. So how do you factor something like this? Well, again, we told you in step 3, always see if there's a GCF, no matching set of parentheses, no letter in all terms, no number in all terms, doesn't start with a negative, so there's no GCF. Once you saw that there was a GCF or no GCF, count the number of terms. 1, 2, 3 terms. You know you can choose shortcut, arch, or FOIL, whatever you like. Because there's no leading coefficient here, I'm going to do the shortcut. Remember the shortcut was the 2 sets of parentheses, the setup. Break down b squared as b and b. Step 2 was sign issues. Because this is a minus sign, we have to do different signs. So this and this, they're going to be different from each other. To be different, it's always 1 plus, 1 minus. Third step, do all the combos of 60. Just go and list 1 and 60, 2 and 30, 3 and 20. Remember, I'm just dividing it evenly. 4 and 15, 5 and 12, 6 and 10, 7 doesn't go in there evenly, 8 doesn't, 9 doesn't, and 10 is already on the board. Fourth step, are we going to add or subtract? we're going to subtract. This should all feel familiar because this is the stuff that we did in section 6.2. And then we have to choose a combo, step 5, the one that matches the middle term. The middle is a 7, so we're going to choose the combo 5 and 12. And then step 6, placement. Find the bigger number, which is 12. It always gets the same sign as the middle, so it's going to be a positive 12. So since this is positive, put the 12 here, put the 5 here. Now that you're done factoring, we're not done solving, we're only done factoring. Remember, factoring is step 3. This is really where you do the solving. So once we found that, take each GCF, well, we found that there was no GCF, and then take each parentheses, the binomials, and set that equal to 0. So you're going to do b plus 12 equals 0. That's one binomial. And then your other binomial, b minus 5 equals 0. Since both of these equations have a b in it, a variable, then take your time and solve for the variable. Here, you're just going to move the 12 over. So the additive inverse, because we're moving to the opposite side of the equation, we'll do a negative on both sides. They cancel out. 0 and a negative 12 would be a negative 12. And if you move this over, notice you just get basically the opposite sign here. You get b equals 5. There is your 2 answers. Now you might be saying, why do I have 2 answers? Shouldn't it be 1 answer? Well, remember, the clue was, look at your original problem. Notice that we have a square here. Square is your biggest exponent. That tells me I'm going to have 2 answers. Here's answer 1. There's answer 2. So to recap, solving equations, it's basically, once you're done factoring, it's just take each of these parentheses, or if you have any GCF, set it equal to 0 so that you can get the letter by itself. b equals negative 12 and b equals 5. We can have these equals because our original problem has an equal sign. This would be your final answer.